So these are all great tools to measure things with, but for technical drawing, for drafting, there's a very specific tool that we'll be using, and it's none of these actually. This tool we're going to be using is called the scale. Okay, so now you've heard the word scale before, but probably you've applied it to a different kind of object. For example, this balance, right, is often referred to as a scale, where we weigh two objects and compare their weights. This is another kind of scale, right? It's the morning, we hop out of the shower and we want to see how much we weigh, so we stand on the scale. Well, different scale. And if you're musically inclined, well, this is another kind of scale, isn't it? And then finally, lizards and snakes and dragons are covered in scales too, right? But none of these mean the same thing as what we're talking about here. Same word, brand new meaning though, scale. So the scale is the tool used by people that do technical drawings, people that work with technical drawings, people that do blueprint reading, architects, engineers, designers, people that work in purchasing and marketing and sales. Anything related to a STEM career, you're going to want to be able to use one of these tools to make some precision measurements. So now what I've got here is I've got a little drawing table set up, and I've got a scale in my hand, and I would invite you to take your scale out of its package and do a little experimenting, pick it up, have a look at it. The scale is actually a very sophisticated tool. You don't want to call it a ruler because it's not a ruler. Rulers are flat and have one system of measurement typically stamped on them. The scale actually has 11 different rulers imprinted on its 3 sides and its 6 edges. So, awesome little tool. Could be a little intimidating at first when you first look at it, trying to figure out, well, what do all these things do? What are all these divisions, and why are all these numbers here? So what we want to do, though, is we want to make sure we have the right kind of scale so that we can do the work that we have to do today. We want an architect's scale. And if you bought your scale from Blueprint Services, I'm sure they gave you the right kind of scale. But here's how you can tell if you have the right scale or not. First of all, looking at the edges of the scale, you should see some numbers, right? And the first one we're looking for is number 16. So flip it around, twist it, flip it upside down, spin it around until you find the number 16. So if you can find the number 16, then you're in good shape. Chances are we're halfway there to the right kind of scale. Now, if you can't find 16, we got some problems. If you don't have a 16, do you have the numbers 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60 printed on the edge of your scale? Well, if you do, you have an engineering scale. That is the wrong kind of tool, and that's not going to help you for what we're going to talk about today. So you'll need to get an architect's scale. Now, if you have the 16, we're halfway there, right? So here's what we want to do. We want to look to see what are the other numbers printed on the edge of the scale. So if you flip it around and look at it, what we're going to find are whole numbers and fractions. For example, on mine it says 1/2, 1/8, 1/4, 1 1/2, 3/8, 3 3/4. See, these are whole numbers and fractions, and if you have those, then congratulations, you have the right kind of scale. Now, if yours says half size, quarter size, 1:100, well, you've got the wrong scale too. You've got a general drafting scale, you don't have an architect's scale. So if we've got the right tool, we'll be able to proceed with the lesson. If we don't, we're going to have to get an architect's scale. Our first lesson using this tool is to understand how to use the standard ruler imprinted on one of the edges of the scale. So flip it around until you see the number 16 in the top left corner. It should start with a 0, a little to the right of that, and then we're going to have every inch marked off as we go down, and we can cover an entire foot from 0 to 12 inches in one pass on this edge of the scale. Okay. Now, What gets tricky for some people is not measuring to the nearest inch. It's very easy to measure the nearest inch. They're all called out, right? They're easy to see where 5 inches is, where 2 inches are, where 10 inches is. See? When the number is stamped on there, very easy to find it. What kind of freaks people out a little bit though is all these little marks in between each of the whole inches. And what we want to do is kind of take away the mystery and demystify what all these little marks mean. Okay, so work along with me as we go through what all the divisions mean on the edge of the scale and how you can take accurate, precise measurements.